Hello, this is Kimberly Wilson, and welcome to the 480th edition of Tranquility du Jour, bringing you tranquility since 2005. Tranquility du Jour is a series of nourishing conversations about living a full and meaningful life with doses of tranquility. In this week's bonus edition, as you know, I've been going to every other week, but at certain times of the year, I have some special ones I want to throw in. So this one's a bonus one, and I'm chatting with Dr. Misty Funk on romancing life. We discuss her transition from a chiropractic career to living a creative life, ways to live a passion-filled life, and ways to romance your own life. A reminder to those of you who are signed up for Love Notes, which you can do at kimberlywilson.com/love notes, check out Tranquil Treasures. We've done a lot of updates over there, and I would love to hear what you think. New PDFs, there's videos, there's MP3s, all sorts of good stuff. And you have access to this if you've signed up for Love Notes, and the password for it is in every single Love Note you receive at the bottom. So please check that out. Let me know what you think and let me know what you need more of. Also, save the date. March 22nd is our next TDJ Live, which is a free seasonal event. It's an online video offering. Also, Tranquility Salon Online, which is my new e-course that will be launching this spring. Dive deep into the 6 Tranquility du Jour tenets in this brand new e-course. And you can join the waitlist. You'll find a link to that in the show notes of this week's podcast, which is kimberlywilson.com/480. Also, would love to have you join us for Provence. We have 2 rooms left, and this week is going to be absolutely delightful. It's the only retreat I have left this year, and it's my last one for about a year and a half. And this is a private villa nestled in the south of France. We'll be doing yoga, creativity, mindfulness, perfume making, and excursions to marketplaces and the Grand Canyon of Europe. 2 rooms left. Details are over in the show notes. Also, you can find more at kimberlywilson.com/Provence. Misty Funk is a writer and artist who hand makes inspirational cards for creatives and entrepreneurs. She encourages others to trust their intuition, follow their dreams, and move past fear and self-doubt. She's a daring adventurous who left a stable, secure life and high-paying career as a doctor of chiropractic in Austin, Texas 4 years ago to travel, explore, and create the life she really wants to live. You can find Misty over at drmistyfunk.com. Welcome, Misty.
Thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. I'm so looking forward to our conversation today.
Well, I'm delighted to have you. And you know what I have to say? When I got your handmade card, I was like, I love this girl. And then, when you wrote kind of your story, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this so much because, this idea of transitioning from being a chiropractor into kind of a different shift, right? So you've got this like super professional persona, and then you change it. And I think so many of our listeners can relate to wanting to do this, or when they do it, feeling a little lost because transition is not easy.
It is really hard. And I have lots of great stories and feedback about all of the fear and just the kind of wonderful surprises that happen when you take that huge leap of faith and take the risk to really follow your heart in life.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that, if you will. So you realize, because you've got this thriving practice, and you're just like, I don't freaking want to do this anymore. It may not have been that bit of an aha, but can you tell us kind of about the process, right? And how to do the unraveling? Because I think so many people can relate to this. And since I kind of did my unraveling of sorts, right, of leaving a business behind that I had built, I have really done what I can to try to interview people who are on a similar path or starting down that path, because I think so many people are curious about it, and it's so much easier to stay stuck in what no longer works. And so that's why I want to really, share inside peeks into it to help empower and educate others.
Well, I completely agree with you, Kimberly. I think people are really hungry for following what feels right internally and really listening to their intuition. And we've, as Americans, and I'm sure as other Westerners and even other countries and areas of the world, like people have really been taught not to follow their own. And we've been told all kinds of messaging that to make it, or that it's too scary, it's too risky, we don't have the capacity if we're not following pre-made formulas. So it is just so wonderful to look out into the world and to find people who are really taking these kinds of risks and hearing the truth. You know, my story, which I'll share in just a few minutes, has definitely not been an easy journey. It hasn't just been some pre-paved road to a success in transition. It has been so difficult and so wonderful. And I think that journey is so important for people to hear. It's not the difficulty and the fear and everything that's really holding people back is a real thing. And on the other side of that is the realization of truly how powerful we are when we can take one step forward in life and overcome the fear. And for me personally, what I've seen transition from this very thriving practice, from this I would say probably the epitome of what people viewed success, to the life that I live today, is that what I feel so deeply is that I have, I would say, more inner confidence and more inner joy and more inner peace than I do. It's almost like my bank account was really fat and healthy when I was practicing. And now what is really fat and healthy is that like inner glow and inner radiance of who I am. And I am working on the financial piece, like putting those pieces together. So I think that's something people are really curious about too, is being able to do something they absolutely love to do and thrive financially. And I can't speak for anyone else, but I can speak for myself that I'm learning how to put those two pieces of the puzzle together to move into the next phase. So just the quick little story is that I was a chiropractor in Austin, Texas. I was in private practice and I had created a boutique practice, something incredibly unique, and it became very popular very quickly because I was offering something that no one else was offering. And after about, I would say 6 to 7 years, I really felt in my heart that it was time to transition to something new. But like you said, I was so scared. I was afraid to give up the money. I was afraid to leave such a wonderful city. I was afraid to leave my practice behind because I didn't have clarity about specifically what I was supposed to be doing. So for me personally, it took a few years to have the courage to step into the next phase of my life. And I have literally every single day been stepping into the unknown. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just know I'm going in the right direction. And a lot of what I thought was going to work out hasn't. But again, inside of that has been me learning and understanding that I can trust myself, that I am going to be fine, and that I can slowly parse together the pieces of a life that's really made for me as opposed to the one I thought I was supposed to be living.
So tell me a little bit about then what your day-to-day kind of looks like after having made this shift, because one of the things you mentioned is like things haven't worked out quite like I thought they would. And, you know, that's the beauty of life, right? It never really does. But can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. When I left chiropractic care, I thought I was going to start a blog, and within 2 years, I was going to be making more money than I did in my private practice. And I blogged and blogged and blogged, and I did not get the traction that I thought I was going to get. And so I just kept testing things out. I started teaching online courses. I started offering all of these different services, and I just felt like I was exploring, and some things worked and some things didn't. And I had to let go of thinking that I knew what I was doing and thinking that I knew exactly what my audience wanted, and just keep putting together the pieces, like letting something come alive inside of me, being creative in a unique way and making an offering, and then partnering that with what people were craving and wanting and needing. So for example, actually, I sent you a handmade card, but one of the offerings that has been the most successful in my business has been to offer a handmade card service. So my audience is creatives and entrepreneurs, and we are taking big risks. We are really going out there and living lives that can be a little bit more scary or a lot of people can't relate to. And so many times people need encouragement and support. And I've been just blown away by the number of people who like a beautiful, like I usually do watercolors, like a beautiful watercolor card every month with a quote on it and then a handwritten note for them. So I would have never guessed when I left my chiropractic practice that I would be creating little pieces of art on a card and writing notes of encouragement to people all over the place. So that's just an example of just how I've had to be really creative and to keep trying until the audience that I was trying to reach really felt hungry for the kinds of things that I had to offer. And then another thing that's happened is that I was feeling so much pressure to monetize what I was doing, and I felt that that robbed me of a lot of the creativity. And so I just chose about a year ago to get a part-time job and to stop feeling that pressure. Now when the money comes in and it flows, that just goes to save for my next adventure. And then I also have a little bit of financial padding to help me feel more comfortable and confident. And I refused for about 3 years after I left my practice to take on a part-time job because I was so used to doing so well financially, and I kept thinking I could just figure everything out. It wasn't until I just let go and realized I have to take care of myself financially, and that it is inside of doing that I was able to actually unleash the real creativity that I had without having to worry. So I will say there's so much on my journey that does not look anything like what I expected to.
Right. Isn't that the beauty of life?
Right.
Now, let's talk a little bit about romance and like romancing life, living a romantic life. So this is one of the things that you had mentioned that you feel like is an important piece of your life and what you are inspired to do. And, I'd like to hear a little bit more about kind of your vision, and how you've created this to live. Like, what does it look like to you to live from a place of romance?
Right. So we'll just kind of put this in perspective for your audience. So when I reached out to Kimberly, I was really curious about having a conversation with her because I have viewed Kimberly since 2008 as living this like beautiful romantic life. And what I mean by that is not having a romance with another person, but literally living romance from the inside out, romancing life or even romancing ourselves. So for me personally, I just want to make that distinction. When we're talking about romancing, we're not talking about creating some beautiful romantic relationship with someone else, even though that can be encompassed in that. And for me personally, Kimberly, what really drew me to you was just the use of your creativity, the fact that you had put so many different interests and passions together into a career. And I've got little air quotes going on over here because so many of us are taught that we have to do one thing and we have to become a master at that. But you've managed to put all these beautiful pieces of your life together in such a unique way. And I look at the places that you travel and the beautiful way that you sparkle. And this is what I mean by romance or romancing life, is literally being able to radiate from the inside out because we are living our passionate, authentic life. And I'm honestly curious to have a conversation with you about how you've done that, or if you even feel that you're living a romantic life yourself, or if you're just naturally being yourself and being a role model and a mentor to so many other women out there.
Well, I love this because I kind of chuckled whenever you started talking, because it's like, I look around and, of course I've got, a pug on my lap. I've got a pug across the room. I've got a cat who's outside clawing at the door. He wants in and he wanted out before the podcast started. And, and it's just like, so much kind of like stuff, like our, just little, pet. I mean, we have like 6 pet beds just lying around in our 600 square feet because, we want them to be comfortable all the times. So as I hear you saying like romantic, beautiful life, I was like, if only she could see it right now. But, I think what comes up for me, kind of big picture with this, right, is this idea of when I think of romancing life, it's like relishing in the simple pleasures, like, of course, I have 2 mugs of tea in front of me, a thing of water, some rose water spray, some rose body lotion, it's like a candle, so I think that's kind of more of what you mean, right? As we think of this idea of like romancing life, it's like paying attention to these sweet, simple details and making them a part of who we are and the way we live our lives, even if you have 6 dog beds in your tiny little place.
Yeah, I think that you're right, Kimberly. It's literally the essence that people probably are seeing inside of you. So we may see something from the photos that you share, but it really is the essence of what you're talking about that's really shining through, because it is the delight of our senses. I think of, just like you said, those simple pleasures with the tea, I think about the beautiful pins that you use when you're creating a day book. It's like that extra little thing that you do, that extra little flair, that I think that makes all of us unique and special, is exactly how I view romancing life. And we see that in others as this really special thing that that I personally find really attractive, and was one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think what you just said right now, that's really kind of a critical nugget of this, is the senses, right? Because for example, these 6 dog beds, okay, like they're all like super, soft, and, they're small, but like super soft. And then I often will have like a little blanket on top of them. So I, really try for myself, yes, to nurture my senses, but also for the beings in my household and the clients that come into my office. I just feel like these sensory touches, soft textures, nice smells, pretty views, are all like such an important piece as I think about this idea of romancing life. And so I love what you said. The one thing that I'm a little curious about is you also mentioned kind of this idea of, creativity and kind of like bringing it into business, or what it is that we're bringing forth in the world. Can you speak a little bit more to that? And I think I could dialogue about it a little bit more, meaning what it is that you see, right? Because I don't know what it is that you see.
Well, hopefully I'm understanding your question properly, but I think something that's unique about my personality, and I'm sure other entrepreneurs feel the same way, is that I just feel like life is this grand experiment. And I have these focuses that I want to keep in my attention. So it's like, I want to live a life of passion and joy, and I want to do something that I'm good at, and I want to offer something that people get value from. And for me, I don't always know that what I'm sharing with the world is going to resonate with them. And so for me, it just feels like this grand experiment, and that I'm just using my unique way of expression. I use my unique ways of being creative in the world as a way to experiment. And for me personally, that just keeps something that could be quite mundane as business. I mean, maybe some people don't feel this way, but I feel like business could be quite mundane. It keeps it fun. And so that's just been my take. And I think just part of my personality is just to be this grand experimenter and this grand seeker, and to do that within the container of business.
Yes, I love that. And I think that another piece for listeners who are like, well, how can I be a grand experimenter, is to begin to question and wonder. And I feel like this is really what I've tried to bring forth in the world, is really what it is that I want and feel like could be useful to others. If we're thinking from the clothing line to the day book, to the books I've written, to the courses that I do, to the yoga studio I'd created, these are even therapy. I mean, honestly, I strive to be the therapist that I want to see. I mean, I've had the same therapist now for about 5 years, who's amazing and has like 30 years experience, right? But what I think for myself is like, I want to be, the supportive, nurturing, kind of like blank slate, but not blank slate to the point where you're, there's like no personality. You just kind of like look at people. Like I'm very engaged, with my clients. And so, with each of these pieces, I feel like, okay, I am striving to put myself out in the world in a way that, I would want to receive. And of course, I'm not for everyone. Do you know what I mean? I mean, some people are definitely, from a therapy angle, they're looking for, somebody with maybe a different theory base, or, someone who is more tough love. Like I am not tough love. Will I help you look at stuff you don't want to look at? Yes. But I am not tough love. Like I am nurturing. And so, I think as you talk about this idea of like what it is we kind of bring forth and put out into the world, it's really helpful, I think, to think about A, what do I want? B, how would I want it shared with me and created? Even like when I say that, what I mean is even so, say with the clothing line, right? It's locally sewn, eco-friendly. We wrap it up like a gift, in tissue paper with a bag of tea and a lavender sachet, so all these different pieces. It's like, okay, how is it presented? I mean, it's not like, it comes in Amazon in like a plastic container with like all the filling, that comes in a box. It's a very different experience. And then I think the third thing, that really comes from it is like, what is my special kind of signature sauce, so to speak? Like what is it that I do differently, or how do I let my personality shine through with this? And this is something that, as you talk about this romantic life, I think from decor, right, to what we wear, to the makeup we choose or don't choose, and sometimes that stuff can feel like, oh, that's just frivolous. But I mean, for me personally, when I feel put together, I feel completely different. Like it's a completely different scenario. Of how I feel like I'm kind of showing up. It's a sense of confidence and, just feeling like, I've got this. And so I feel like all these sorts of things really tie into, okay, how do I live and promote, a romantic life that taps into the senses, provides people simple luxuries and things that will help ideally make their lives more meaningful, useful, tranquil.
I love it. You've definitely tapped on some of those points that I was talking about when I observe you, Kimberly. I mean, just even talking about your packaging and making it a little special with the tea and the lavender. I mean, these are the definite kinds of things that we're talking about with delighting in the senses. And it's the kind of thing, if you're not being thoughtful and creative, if we're just going through our day-to-day life, we can miss these little simple things that we can do that really shift our energy. And I truly believe when we're living a life of romance, we are glowing from the inside out. And I can just hear that in you. I'm thinking about receiving the item that you have in your clothing line and picking up that package and feeling the difference of receiving that compared to getting the traditional Amazon package that you're talking about. And that's makes all the world of difference.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think it's just such an important piece, right? And it's like, so we're past the holiday season, but if you think about it, even, holidays, right? It's like, oh, I'll bring out my china for that. Or, it's like, I'll bring out our family stuff for that. It's like, why not use all of that stuff in everyday life? Like, isn't every day worthy of china, or family heirlooms, So it's like this sort of enhancing and elevating the ordinary.
I completely agree. I mean, I even think back to some of my experiences with a romantic partner and some of the things that have been the most meaningful to me, the kinds of experiences that I can recreate for myself is just those simple, ordinary moments where we were lounging on a blanket in a park with a bottle of wine or something. It doesn't really have to be extravagance, going off to Paris or spending a lot of money. It is those moments where we actually can just take a little extra time to just be soothed by the sun with with someone special. And that could be just ourselves, or it could be the client or customer that we are going to be delivering a product or service to. So I love that.
Yeah. I think that's a great example. And one of the things too, as I think about kind of romantic living, is this idea, and you wrote about it on your blog, and the title was, "Are you continuously distracted by challenges and things that are urgent but not important?" And, whenever I think about too, this idea of like a romantic life, it's like, okay, what am I doing to focus on what matters most to me? To really kind of drop into and bask in the present moment with the experience that's in front of us. And so I'm curious, what instigated this post for you, and what did you find kind of from it that you were like, this is what I've learned?
Yeah, something that comes up for me before I answer your question was, as I was listening to you talk, I just really thought about something that happens in a romantic relationship with a lover, is this idea of luxuriating just a little bit longer in bed, or just spending a little bit extra time in a really beautiful moment. And I think about how rare that is for myself, to just allow myself to feel the good feeling of a celebration, or to actually celebrate something that I've done in my own. So I think that's really powerful. And then to answer your question about the post, I have been working so diligently on not being reactionary in life and really living from a life of intention. And I have noticed a huge transition in my writing with my audience. And that is, I used to write posts that was all about what was going on in my life and how I learned to overcome something, and how I was able to take that lesson, that inherent challenge in any area of my life, especially because I was going out and going way beyond my comfort zone to make all of these big decisions, and to try to create a new income for myself, and to create a new identity for myself. And there was so much fear, and I made so many mistakes. I am making so many mistakes, and I was writing from that place, just sharing what I was learning. And something really shifted for me is really being grounded and centered, and then sharing from that place, as opposed to sharing from a fearful place. Or I'm going blank on the title of the post because I don't have it in front of me. But I really think that post was just even sharing that transition that I feel happening in my own life. It's almost coming to a place where I'm feeling more grounded in who I am, more authentic, and feeling more comfortable and confident with the decisions that I've made. And I really have just felt this movement from reactivity to groundedness in my life and in my writing. And I really felt that that's what I was trying to express through sharing that post.
So one of the things, Misty, that you also have mentioned, and that we've talked about just a little bit, is this idea of passion, right? So when you think about a romantic life, passion filled, right? What would my dog? So pause.
No worries.
So what do you think that kind of looks like or feels like? When the word passion, a lot of times people say it's overused. Go find your passion. But, that's not what we're speaking about so much here. This idea, though, of like, when I think of passion and kind of a romantic life, I think of surrounding ourselves with things that evoke an emotion. What does it mean to you?
Well, I'll first say that I just truly honor the fact that we are all so different, and that certain words, like the word passion, may bring up different things for different people, but it also can have varying levels of importance. For me personally, I do feel like I'm a very passionate person who wants to live a passionate purpose. And that's just something that is, I think, inherent to who I am. So while I can't necessarily say that this is super important for other people, I know internally that it is for me. And again, it goes back to something that I mentioned before. I can feel something happen inside of me, or I feel myself really attracted to other people and their work based on how alive and passionate they feel about what they're talking about what they're sharing or expressing through their work. or even just through a simple interaction if you're in public transit or just having a simple conversation with someone. So for me personally, it is almost a feeling. It is almost paying attention to someone's face light up. It is see them engaging with me and others in a way that really draws me in, draws me closer. I mean, there are people out there who are passionate about things that I have no interest. But when I'm around them talking about what they're passionate about, I can't help but find my curiosity piqued and my interest increased in that. And so that's something I try to live for my own life, to pay attention to share, to experiment with, like I mentioned before, in my business and in my life, is doing something that makes me feel passion filled. So that's how I use it in my own personal life, and just how I notice it affects me as I engage with others in the world.
Well, and you know what I love about that too, is I think it circles back to where we began today, which is this idea of like, when you are no longer passion filled about what you do, where you live, who you're with, and not to mean like, oh, we're always in the honeymoon phase, but it's like when you just feel in your body like it's no longer there, kind of like how you said, you see someone and, you know, your face lights up or their face lights up. It's like, when that's no longer there, I think it's just such a good checkpoint to be like, what's going on here? You know, what needs a shift? And sometimes it's our attitude, right? Sometimes it's like, no, we've outgrown this situation.
I totally agree. It's almost like an indicator light for me personally. And again, I think we might all be different, but for me personally, you know, when I was practicing chiropractic, I reached a point where I literally felt as if my soul was leaking out of me and I had no passion to bring to the table. And I was feeling my interest being pulled in a different way and truly feeling like I could truly serve the world and myself and others in a very powerful way if I could just trust that inner intuition and follow that. I would use the word passion. I do think that I followed my passion, and I had to also be realistic because some of the things I was passionate about did not earn an income for me. And I had to be brave and let those things go and not be so attached to them, and just to keep trying and experimenting until all the pieces came together for me to be able to offer my passionate way of expressing things and my passionate purpose in the world, and also be able to support myself in a healthy way.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder, right? It's like passion and reality, you know, it's like we have to balance both. Well, Misty, my last question for you is the name of this podcast is Tranquility du Jour. And so I'm curious for you, like, what are your go-to tranquility practices that are like a daily must-have?
I have a morning practice. I journal. I always make a cup of tea or coffee in the morning and I would just say like a simple contemplation with no intention. I'm not following anybody else's practice. I mean, some mornings I just stare out the window and enjoy watching the birds on the chapel that's outside my window. And some mornings I get engrossed in a book and just journal like a mad woman trying to explore something. And then tea is something that is so meaningful to me. I have a ridiculous amount of teas, and it's something I gift myself almost every year for Christmas. So it's sipping tea and contemplating and just having wonderful conversations with people like you, Kimberly, that keep me grounded and feeling tranquil in every day.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Misty, for being here with us, for sending me that sweet card. I just so treasure it. And, for the way in which you show up in the world and for actually making that change. It's not easy, and I commend you greatly.
And I also just want to give a big hug to your audience, to anybody else who's going through a big transition. I know both of us have been there. It's incredibly scary, and just trust yourself and get great support, and you'll definitely blossom in ways you never, ever dreamed. So my question for you is, how will you romance your life today?
What does that look like for you? In the show notes, you'll find ways to connect. I have a favor to ask. If you would please write a review of this podcast or any of my books on Amazon or Goodreads, would be so grateful. And you can do that. I've got links to everything at KimberlyWilson.com/review. Also, visit KimberlyWilson.com/podcast for more episodes and including the iPhone and Android Tranquility du Jour podcast app. Of course, you can subscribe to this podcast in your favorite podcast app. Sign up for Love Notes, as I mentioned at the beginning, all sorts of fun new treasures that have been added. Browse my 6 books, follow on social media, and also check out the locally sewn eco-friendly clothing line Tranquility, which is going through an entire new rebrand look and way in which we show up. So I can't wait to share that with you. And you can find out more about that by following along at KimberlyWilson.com, where I'll be posting in the blog. So wishing you a delightful week ahead, so much romance, so much passion, and so much kind of slowing down and tuning in. Namaste.